Hey everybody. So, this challenge is specifically for my fifth graders. Everybody else, second through four, I will be posting another challenge, so stay tuned for that. My fifth graders, your challenge this week is to design a fifth grade legacy mural. So, I am going to share with you two artists specifically that create murals, and I'd like you to either choose one of their kind of ways of approaching work or possibly combining them. Right? We're going to look at the artwork of a New York based artist, Sony, and the work of a British based artist, the Queen of MacGyver. So I'm going to share you their work. And when you do the work, I'm going to ask that you can hand draw it, or you can use an app called Assembly, which is good, I think, only for iOS and Apple products, or you could use Google Drawings as well, right? And one of the big constraints on this one is I'd like you to limit your color palette, right, when you create your plan for the mural. So using three colors and black and white. Try not to use more than that, right? And when you create your mural, your design for it, I'm going to ask that you think of something inspirational for Zamorano. What would you like to leave as a positive, lasting mark on our campus for future generations of students? So something to think about as I walk you through Sony and Laquena's work and show you a couple examples. So stay tuned, and I can't wait to see what you do with this challenge. I'm expecting everybody to be done by Friday. All right. So good luck, shine bright, and get rolling. The first artist, the Queen of MacGyver, like I said, is based in England, and she combines very bold graphic shapes with inspirational text. This is a recent artwork that she did. Nothing can separate us. Oftentimes she has symmetry in her work, and she uses a lot of colors. So if you choose to go in this direction, I'm going to ask that you scale back in terms of the range of colors you use. Remember, only three plus black and white. Here's another example of Laquena's work. The best is yet to come. And again, you see a strong sense of symmetry and a combination of straight shapes as well as curved shapes in the design. But I think it's really neat how she always combines this inspirational text with this graphic imagery. Last year's fifth grade legacy mural was created after looking at Laquena's artwork. And this was the collaborative project that was done. Two students did it on an iPad with an app called Assembly. Believe in yourself. So they came up with the concept and the composition and the colors, everything about it. Here are a few of Sony's imagery. Sometimes he works very large like this, sometimes he works smaller, but again, you can see how he limits his palette. He's just focusing on the primary colors, and he breaks his compositions up to into a variety of geometric shaped squares and rectangles to convey a message. So sometimes his figures are very silly, they're kind of simple, and they all kind of connect in some way to kind of create a story. He also uses pattern blocks too. You can see a zigzag block there or the brick block. So he uses a combination of images that we can recognize and patterns. Here's another one of Sony's works. You can see all of these really focus on a music theme. So if you choose to go in this direction, again, you want to limit your palette and you want to come up with a theme that you can use that's going to unify all of them or most of them together. Now, with this theme, you can also include text as well if you'd like to. These are some student drawings that were done last year after looking at Sony's work. So again, you can see how the themes vary from one to the other. They limited their palette and they used a variety of sizes of the box, verticals, horizontal, rectangles, and squares, and some of them incorporated text as well. So if you choose to go in the Sony influenced direction, think about how you're connecting the imagery together. Are you using large shapes? Are you using small shapes? How does everything connect to convey a positive message for our Zamorano community? Now, before you get started designing, I'd like you to come up with your concept, your theme. So I encourage you to brainstorm. So this is a brainstorming sheet that a couple students did last year. So you could see they gave themselves a variety of choices, and then they selected one of them to use as the subject for their mural. Here's another brainstorming sheet. So I encourage you to come up with at least 3 or 4 possible ideas, and then think about narrowing it down from there. And then once you have your idea, you can see be positive here, is before you start the serious design, experiment with it. Try a couple sketches to come up with the best composition possible. I think it's really important that you follow these steps: the brainstorming, the sketching, and then the final version. This is the Be Positive final version. So you can see it's much more refined. The app that they were using kind of allows them to create very cleanly. But without those first couple steps, I don't think this design would have been as successful. Here's another example of a design done last year, Respect Others. You can see how they used a variety of rectangles and squares, and they did a pretty nice job. It wasn't required to minimize their color palette, but they kept it pretty simple. Another student example done last year, you can see these students did a really nice job of limiting their color palette to basically blues and greens, and then tints and shades of those colors. And then you can see how the white graphic text, the white and black, really kind of pops off because of the limited colors that they used. No matter which method you use or which style you use, I'm going to ask that you stick with a horizontal format. Please don't create a vertical design. Have it run across one of the blank walls provided or on a blank sheet of paper horizontally. It could be narrow like this, it could be a little wider like some of the others, but the design must be done going from left to right, horizontal. All right, so when designing, after you've done your brainstorming and your sketching, a couple ways you can approach it. There is an app called Assembly, which is pretty fantastic. However, it's only available for iPhones and iPads, so you might not have access to it, but it's a great way to combine shapes and text. Everybody here, if you were here in second grade, used this app in second grade when you created a digital mural then, without inspirational text. So you are familiar with it if you were here in second grade. I have included a how-to video on Google Classroom of how you can add your wall as a background and then create on top of it with Assembly, like the student did last year. Another digital option would be to use Google Drawings. So you can use it as a website, or you can download it and use it then. And you could then build shapes onto a wall. You can import a photo as a background, or you can just design on a blank space, and you can use different shapes, you can change different colors, you can experiment with different fonts. Here's a framework for a mural composition that I designed in Google Drawings, where basically I just used different rectangles and then I stretched them to create a composition based on a previous sketch that I had, based on Sony's way of working with multiple panels. If you prefer to draw it out freehand, you can do that too. Before I started to use Assembly to help me with my own murals and artwork, that's how I would do it. I would often take a photograph of the setting and I would draw on top of it. And that's what I did with this mural on the kindergarten building, where I took a photo, did my plans down there at the bottom. Once I figured that out, I did different color compositions
basically just tracing the framework. So I wasn't drawing on top of a photograph anymore because I wanted the colors to be a little bit more true. So you can see how I came up with 2 different color schemes before we finalized the mural on that 700 building. So this is definitely an option too. You don't have to use anything digital. You can completely hand draw it. So here's the final version of that one on the 700 building. You should be familiar with this one. So if you hand draw it, things can totally get cleaned up by the artist as they scale it up on an actual wall. So, which way will you go? Will you approach it in a multi-panel, narrative, figurative approach like Sony with different characters and different symbols? Will you approach it with more of a shape and text-based design like LaQuaint MacGyver? It is entirely up to you. Or would it be a combination of both? So remember, you want to make sure that you get your work done as soon as possible. Go through those steps. Make sure you brainstorm. Make sure you sketch. Make sure you finalize. So that's about it. I can't wait to see what kind of mural you create and what kind of message you convey. So please make sure you share your work when it's done to Google Classroom. Shine bright.